The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is a proud supporter of Indian Country Today. Students at Cronkite News and Gaylord College at the University of Oklahoma cover indigenous communities together. This important work is distributed by more than 100 news organizations. This collaboration provides a much-needed boost to coverage of Native American communities nationwide. Learn more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Thoahungva. Here are the headlines from Indian Country Today. The Tohono O'odham Nation in Arizona is not letting up on getting its citizens vaccinated against COVID-19. Recently, the Arizona National Guard helped vaccinate O'odham people in Hawaii, Arizona. The town is in the far south of Arizona on the nation's land that borders Mexico. The nation's healthcare department is providing both the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. More than 7,000 O'odham people have been fully vaccinated so far. The nation says 79 citizens have died from the virus. Leaders have seen an increase of 10 cases in the first part of May, which has raised the threat level to substantial risk. The nation has produced a number of videos in both English and the O'odham language to warn its citizens about the ongoing dangers of COVID-19.
Skugdash Waveling Sanders Vice Chair 1, Maidamchik Chairman Mom Shaagais Abamjit Ida Momkidak Mabaga COVID-19, Matraisi Wilsko Hamaisha Kumachkam Cha Ia Tohono O'odham Jod.
Citizens who are fully vaccinated are still being urged to wear a face covering when they are in public places. History is unfolding after the discovery of a 4,000-year-old canoe in South Carolina's Cooper River. Tribes along with archaeologists at Clemson University are studying pieces of the canoe. Archaeologists say they are looking to tribal communities to both inform them of the history and also claim authority over their heritage. Lamar Nelson, who is Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois, got a chance to see and touch the canoe. Nelson says it's amazing to see something that his ancestors created thousands of years ago. And citizens of the state-recognized Wasamasa tribe say they hope the canoe pieces help to show the impact of Native Americans in the area. Conserving the canoe has taken more than a year, and archaeologists are now looking to find more pieces in the Cooper River. Archaeologists with Clemson University say it could take 2 to 4 more years before the canoe is on display. An art installation in Southern California is calling for the return of stolen land taken from the Cahuilla people. Letters reading Indian land tower 45 feet high in the desert south of the Santa Monica Mountains. It's a reference to the famous Hollywood sign in nearby Los Angeles. The piece is called Never Forget, and it was created by Nicholas Galanin. It's part of a collection of art that was set up in early March. The display will be up through the beginning of July. Galanin, who is Tlingit and Unanga, is also raising funds to buy the land and return it to the local Cahuilla tribe. Though international travel is still restricted, in Russia, a sand sculpture exhibit is bringing the world to its festival. The theme of the St. Petersburg Sand Sculpture event is A World Without Borders and gives Russian people a chance to see different cultures in artworks built from sand. The sculptures use more than 300 tons of sand, and some of the art is 32 feet tall. The Eiffel Tower and other features Paris is known for are packed into one of the creations. For Brazil, you can see the carnival dancers. And this year, North America is represented by historic images of indigenous people. The massive piece of art includes a man in a plain-style headdress and a woman holding a child in a cradleboard. The Sand Sculpture Festival started on May 2nd and runs until September 15th. Intense contact tracing and keeping an eye on high-risk individuals is being credited for helping the White Mountain Apache tribe in Arizona fight COVID-19. At one point, the tribe was a hotspot in Arizona, and by September of last year, 39 people had died from the coronavirus. The tribe has about 15,000 citizens. Another key to its aggressive efforts, tribal citizens worked alongside health professionals to keep the community safe. The Apaches trusted their own to take care of them. And you can read the entire story on our website, IndianCountryToday.com. Search for the headline, Apache's Reflection from a Pandemic. The show Grey's Anatomy is now featuring its first Indigenous doctor. Robert Mesa, who is Navajo and Saboba, is casted as James Chi. He made his first debut in the third episode and is expected to be a reoccurring cast member. According to Variety, the character of Chi was introduced as part of the new class of interns at the hospital, where they are embarking on their careers as doctors during the pandemic. They've also had scenes where Indigenous characters play real-life situations during the COVID-19 pandemic. You can check your local listing to find out when it's available in your area. And those are the headlines from Indian Country Today. I'm Patty Thalahungva. A state joins the battle against an oil pipeline.
It's a showdown between Enbridge, 12 tribes, and one state. We'll hear more about this battle when we come back. The Grand Canyon has inspired creativity for generations. Generations of musicians know this well through the Grand Canyon Music Festival. Since 1983, the festival has had a unique relationship with area tribes. The Native American Composers Apprentice program brings Native youth together with professional classical musicians and composers. Michael Begay was an apprentice, and now he's a teacher. Welcome, Michael.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
So how does a kid from the res become a classical musician?
Oh wow, I've been trying to chase music programs around for quite a while growing up. I moved around a lot due to my father's work, and it was very challenging trying to find a music composition program. And I've always been trying to get in a music program down in Phoenix when I was in high school there. But eventually I moved back to the reservation, and that's when I found NACAP with the Grand Canyon Music Festival, and I've just never left. I started writing compositions as a teenager, and I've worked with many Native American composers while I was growing up, including Brent Michael Davids, Jared Impachacha Tate, and Raven Chacon. They've all helped me when I was really young and starting out, and they let me drive around with them as an apprentice as well, driving around to schools, and I got to learn quite a lot of their pedagogy and all of their techniques and stuff. So it was very mind opening.
I think one extraordinary part of that is folks don't realize how rich the history is with Native Americans and classical music. Really, you can go back to the turn of the 19th century, and folks were writing symphonies and operas, and it really is a rich genre.
Yeah, it's it's something that is very how should I say this? It's untapped yet still, and there's so much potential for development, and to push the boundaries of all of these rules and whatnot. But I think when it comes down to it, it all comes down to the story, and the connection between people, the story, the land, and finding that common ground between all of us.
Speaking of the story, we want to hear a piece, and it's a composition for strings. Maybe tell us about it.
Oh yeah, that composition I wrote when I think I was 16 or 17 years old, and that piece is called Chiaro Scuro. I believe it's Italian for the contrast between dark and light. So I was really kind of be a little moody, and it was one of my very first times that I kind of tried an experimental sound with glissandos. So when you listen to the piece, you'll hear the stuff kind of eerily making some noises and stuff, almost like winds or ghostly effect or something. So some of my earliest taking risk as an early young composer.
Well, we'll take a listen. Now, tell me about the work you do with youth.
Yeah, I work with, as you said, I was a part of the very first Native American Composers Apprentice project back in 2001. And now I'm one of the teaching instructors alongside Raven Chacon. Raven Chacon's sort of like my leader, and he's still my mentor. So I teach under him, under his guidance, and then what we do is we go around Hopi and Navajo reservation schools, and also a few other reservations, and we teach them the art of music composition, and you know, we listen to their stories, and you know, these young composers really, you know, they wear their heart on their sleeve, and you know, their stories are very compelling, and you know, a lot of these need to be heard. And you know, man, and you know, being that we're both First Nations composers, you know, and you know, I bet they can really open up to us a lot more, you know, because we're a familiar face, and you know, and we're doing what we're doing. But I also work with that, and then I also work with the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra as well, with their youth program. So I'll be out there in June as well, teaching out there, and we're wrapping up a NACAP, I think this week as well. So we should be having a concert here shortly with the Grand Canyon Music Festival.
Excellent. We only have about 30 seconds left, but what else is coming up?
Oh, I got two orchestras coming up with Orchestra Northern Arizona, and I just got accepted to the Johns Hopkins Peabody University School of Music. So I'll be heading there in August. I have just quite a few commissions with the Conservatory in Boston, and a new commission with the Trinity Cathedral in Phoenix for a new cathedral work with a choir. It's lots of stuff.
Congratulations. That's exciting stuff.
Thank you.
And you can visit Michael Begay's website at michaelbegaymusic.com to hear more. One of the great dividing lines in our society these days is pipelines. They represent extractive industries against possibly the future. Several Native groups have taken a stand against oil pipelines, and now the state of Michigan is being joined with 12 tribes in taking a stand against one of the pipelines that's nearly 70 years old. Marinette Pember is a national correspondent for Indian Country Today, and her story, Enbridge Pipeline Showdown, looms in Michigan, focuses on the plans to run the Line 5 tunnel under the Straits of Mackinac. Welcome, Marinette.
Good to see you, Mark.
So let's start with the background of this story.
Well, as you said, the pipeline has been there for like over 60 years, and it was built during a time there was certainly there were not the environmental laws in place that we have today. There was no Clean Water Act, and certainly there were no mandates to consult with tribes. Currently, the pipeline lies on the bottom, on the lake bed of the Straits of Mackinac. I know it's spelled with a C, and if you're not from the Great Lakes, people often pronounce it Mackinac, but it is Mackinac for the record. So it has had there have been some accidents, and there's a great concern that, it's a major shipping lane there, and there's great concern that some of these ships' anchors would strike the pipeline and break it, and of course spewing oil into this essentially two different lakes on which many people depend, tribes and native folks and non-natives, for fishing. And then, of course, the impact on the environment in general. So Enbridge, who owns the pipeline, had proposed building this like $500 million tunnel under the Straits. So they would dig down underneath the Straits and put like actually a dual pipeline system underneath. So people many people are opposed. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who's a Democratic governor of Michigan, has actually issued an order for them to stop running oil through the pipeline, which they promptly ignored. Her deadline was May 12th, but they say that she does not. Enbridge is claiming she doesn't have the authority, and of course now they're in court about this. There's various claims. They claim there is this 1977 transit pipeline treaty between the United States and Canada that Enbridge is relying on to, say that basically as the governor of a state, she has no right to do that. And of course, the state is fighting to have the decision being taken to state court, so a state judge can make the decision. Currently, they are in talks, court-ordered mediation talks, and those are going on now. And the oil's continuing to run through those pipelines. It also carries, when we talk about a pipeline, People don't often understand that it's actually, we're talking about often talking about several pipelines. So one of the lines, over 640 feet, miles long rather, carries propane. And most of the oil products, the petroleum products, run from what they call the manifold in Superior, Wisconsin, up through the upper peninsula of Michigan, and then back to Canada in Sarnia, Ontario. So most of that oil doesn't really, is not consumed by anybody in the United States. However, the propane is. There are some places along the Upper Peninsula in which people do get their pipeline, and many people heat and cook with propane. And so there's great. They have Enbridge has really tried to indicate that people would be without access to propane. However, Governor Whitmer says she has come up with a plan to address that. So tribes have all tribes in Michigan have signed resolutions opposing the pipeline. Taking the lead in many ways is the Bay Mills Indian community, quite near the straits there, and they actually just enacted a banishment a rule against Enbridge. So and called upon the United States government and the state of Michigan to honor that banishment. So we're kind of at a holding point at this point.
It's really extraordinary how, whether it be Enbridge or even Dakota Access Pipeline, they really make the case when they get before the courts that litigate all you want, but we're going to keep pumping.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, is often opponents of pipelines will go to court and try to get judge, a federal judge or state judge who's ever deciding to stop oil while while the case is being litigated. But so far that hasn't happened that I see in any case. But we just saw in the Dakota Access Pipeline that the judge just ruled that Energy Transfer could continue running oil through the pipeline while the lawsuit questioning the Army Corps of Engineers permitting process is ongoing.
What's next in this, Marinette?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What is next? I think it's very politically loaded. I think Premier Trudeau is, I think he's under a great deal of pressure, even though, Canada says that they're really, looking to push back against climate change and use of fossil fuels. But he's under a great deal of pressure, economic pressure. And so far, President Biden has not said anything publicly about it. I think, a lot of forces are on both sides are moving forward fairly aggressively. So as we're in this holding pattern with this mediation process, I anticipate this summer is going to be active. And I mean by perhaps people, doing actions and also litigating quite heavily.
Thank you, Marinette Pember.
Thanks, Mark.
We'll be right back with a look at music and a large art installation that's making a point. Now let's turn to another art form. This one is in Southern California. If you travel near the Santa Monica Mountains, you will most likely see letters that stand 45 feet tall, proclaiming the area Indian land. It's not so subtle reference to the famous Hollywood sign that's closer to Los Angeles. Nicholas Galanin created the art installation he calls Never Forget. It's one of 13 pieces of art from various artists for the Desert X 2021 exhibition. And as Sandra Hale Shulman reports, Galanin is taking his art one step further. Sandra joins us now to talk about this art installation. Welcome, Sandra.
Hi.
So tell us about how this story unfolds and this art came to be.
With the Desert X. Well, Galanin is a very interesting artist. He's out of Sitka, Alaska, but he does a lot of different things. He actually is signed to Sub Pop. He has a record out now, and he does a lot of visual art. He's an engraver. But he came up with this idea for Desert X. He wanted to make a really big statement, and he sure did. He took the cue from it originally said Hollywood Land in Hollywood, Florida, in Hollywood, California. And he wanted to proclaim that this is Indian land. I mean, it was all Indian land to start with. So he shortened it down and just put the Indian land. He constructed that on site. It's extremely large when you get up close to it. There's big steel scaffolding behind it, and then the bright white letters. And it's on the land of the Agua Caliente band of Cahuilla Indians. So what he has done with this installation, he's raising awareness because it causes you, when you see the sign, you know, people that don't realize, yes, this is Indian land. He's also using it as a fundraiser to raise money, to give to the tribe, to perhaps buy some land back, or to go to court and challenge some of the treaties that may have taken land away.
Great art, like great stories, is layer on layer on layer. And one of the layers, of course, is the irony of Hollywood and its creation of a narrative that never was. And here this art kind of thumbs its nose at that.
Yeah, well, the Hollywood was, was built as a movie studio, maybe, I guess, towards 100 years ago. And the actors couldn't travel very far on their days off on the weekends because they had to be back in the studio. So they started coming out to the Palm Springs area, which had the Morongo Indians, the Cahuilla tribe was there. And it's a beautiful area. There's hot springs, and there's palm trees, and there's mountains, and there's desert. It's really lovely. So they started creating this kind of myth of, you know, this is the Hollywood land away from where the movies are being made. And a lot of movie stars settled out there, and they started filming a lot of movies out there, Westerns in particularly. If you go up to Pioneer Town, which is north of the Palm Springs area, there's a whole Western town up there. It's pretty amazing.
And the West that never was is becoming the one that we accept, thanks to that imagery. I understand that this has a traveling component.
Yes, well, what he hopes to do is, he didn't spell out a specific tribe name, he didn't say Cahuilla hand or Agua Caliente land. He wanted to say Indian land. So this way, the piece can move, and I believe it's already slated to move to several different places, and it will work. I mean, no matter where you put this down in the North Americas, it's going to be Indian land somewhere. So it's the kind of piece that will take on different meanings in the different locations, which is really interesting that he's doing that.
It's really striking. What other types of exhibits are part of this if people go out there?
If you go out to Desert X, you can look online, you can go to their headquarters at the Ace Hotel, and you can pick up a map of where all of the different installations are. And some of these are enormous. They're way out in desert locations. You generally have to park and then walk, not too far, maybe a 5 or 10 minute walk to go out into the desert. There's things from Arabian artists, there's things from European artists, beautiful sculptures. Some of them, there's one that's shaped like an arrow, out of like an arrowhead in the desert. There's another one that runs along the medium of Palm Springs, which is horse sculptures with paintings on a banner above the horses. It's really a treasure hunt. I spent about 3 days out there driving to each of the locations and taking pictures. It's really quite lovely. And they do this every 2 years.
How much time do we have to see this exhibit?
The pieces were so popular, the larger ones, they have extended it into about mid-July, and some of them even into August. Nicholas Galanin, the artist, told me yesterday that his piece, Indian Land, is staying up now till mid-August.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sandra.
Okay, well, thank you.
And you can read more of Sandra's story, Art Installation Calls for the Return of Native Lands, on our website, IndianCountryToday.com. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Join us again tomorrow and online at IndianCountryToday.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Mark Trahan.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
This is Indian Country Today.